So I'm sure some of you would have now seen the clips of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff in an interview with 60 Minutes, where they're talking about their negotiations in order to get this ceasefire deal in place. It's a deal, by the way, which many, including myself, have all kinds of concerns around. Are we going to be repeating the same mistakes of the past? Israel withdrawing from parts of Gaza, Hamas regrouping, releasing terrorists with a lot of blood on their hands. But anyway, I have no doubt that they are well-meaning, but they said some things in the interview which, let's just say at the very least, raised some eyebrows in the many parts of pro-Israel and Jewish camps. And that's because one of the reasons is because Kushner and Witkoff expressed a bit of betrayal and upset with Netanyahu for the strike on the Hamas leaders in Qatar. Now, the first thing they said was that Kushner basically said, quote, "We woke up the next morning to find out that there had been this attack. And of course, I was called by the president." And he said, we had no idea. And I think both Jared and I just felt a little bit betrayed. Says that Trump was furious. And Kushner said, I think he felt like the Israelis were getting a little bit out of control in what they were doing. This is what I think the key line that raised some eyebrows. Out of control in eliminating the leaders of Hamas. That's out of control. Now, he, of course, would argue that, well, yeah, because we're trying to negotiate with them to get out your hostages and do all these things. So you're kind of just making this job harder. So I understand where they're coming from their end. But I think you have to be very, very careful with your language when you're talking about Hamas terrorists. And look, in addition to that, one might argue that this actually propelled the deal forward because it got Qatar worried, it got other state actors worried. I understand Kushner and Witkoff were on a mission. They had something specific to do that they were set out to achieve, whether or not you agree with their attempt at a deal. But I just think you have to be very, very, very careful with your language when speaking about this. There's also a lot of talk about, they actually sat opposite to the Hamas leaders and would express condolences to one of the Hamas leaders who lost his son in the Israeli strike. And Witkoff said, I too lost a son. And he said also, I was trying to convince Ben-Gvir on the other end and get who was really quite hostile to the ceasefire deal. Again, I understand that they have their job. They have their mission to try and create a negotiation and all of this. What I really struggled with is humanizing people who have evil ends. Just imagine replacing the word Hamas with Nazi. Okay? Now, you would say, yeah, but come on, Ollie, this is just the way they have to roll. This is the way negotiations work. They have to treat them with respect. Some even say, by the way, that maybe the reason they're doing this 60 Minutes interview is they're playing 4D chess to appease Qatar and show Qatar that they really are sincere, that they had no idea about what Israel's doing, even if maybe it was coordinated with America beforehand, and they need to do this just to settle Qatar. Maybe. It could be the case, but my tendency is normally, if someone says something, especially on the record, unless you have strong evidence to the contrary, you just have to take it at face value. He went on to say in the interview, Witkoff, by the way, it had a metastasizing effect when Israel hit Qatar, because the Qataris were critical to the negotiation, as were the Egyptians and the Turks, and we lost the confidence of the Qataris, so Hamas went underground and it was very difficult to get to them. So I'm sorry that, first of all, someone wrote about this, saying, talk about a jaw-dropping distortion. If the Egyptians, Turks and Qataris hadn't been against Israel throughout the war, the hostages would have come home a lot sooner. Furthermore, Hamas went underground after the attack due to the realization Israel meant business about hunting down its leaders and members wherever they may take refuge, and they hadn't been on the verge of capitulation at that point. And on the contrary, they played their cards as though they had the upper hand, and as long as they were holding and torturing dozens of innocent captives, they continued to call the shots. And the strike in Doha, coupled with the surrounding of Gaza City, Hamas's last untouched stronghold in the Strip, shifted all of that, right? So that the former caused Qatar to beg for American guarantees for protection, which it received. The latter led the negotiators finally to apply pressure on Hamas. If you just look at the timeline, you'll see that. The attack in question took place on September the 9th. The reaching of a deal was announced on October the 8th. And every living hostage was back home on October 13th. But nevertheless, Witkoff and Kushner seemingly are trying to highlight the opposite. And it's true that this exchange that I'm quoting to you was part of a much longer interview. It's also clear that it was chosen by CBS as a certain promo to garner global attention and clicks. So maybe there were some greater clarifications. And we, of course, know that Witkoff said that he was in the trenches with the Prime Minister. And he said, believe me, he was a very important part here, etc., etc. We're hearing language from them in this interview that I've just from some clips that I've seen that I think create a little bit of moral cloudiness that I'm not such a fan of. And I understand they're the ones that are charged with negotiating. So maybe they feel the need to do this. I think you can still negotiate without lacking moral clarity. There's another clip where it says that during a cabinet meeting in Israel, Witkoff told 60 Minutes that National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir became angry when speaking about October 7th and the deal. Witkoff said he tried to find common ground by sharing the story of his own son, who tragically died of an opioid overdose. And he recalled telling Ben-Gvir that he needed to let it go and can't play the victim all the time. Again, with respect to Witkoff, he should understand that here in Israel, there are terrorists who want them dead. The people of Israel want justice, and this is the kind of moral ambiguity that I'm very much talking about. Qatar are not, unless you can prove me otherwise, they have been aiding and abetting Hamas and Islamist projects. Number one. Number two, Israel has every moral right to destroy Hamas. Number three, I personally think you have to be very careful in the extent in how you talk about Hamas and Israel and moral equivalence and all that. And I think I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments about what you think about this. But I'm worried that actually the very objectives of what they're trying to do and what they tried to create here, Israel withdrawing from parts of Gaza, saying Hamas have to disarm, but I don't see how they're planning to do this. On top of that, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, I'm sorry, I do not see good evidence that they are potentially peaceful in their intentions. Quite frankly, if anything, the evidence shows me the opposite. Right? Qatar housing Hamas, Egypt not allowing Gazans in to seek refuge. All of them wanting to prop up, it seems to me, this war. And now the fact that you have them involved in whatever's going to be a new Gaza regime, although I don't know how it's going to be achieved when Hamas seem like they're already taking control again. And you've got all these terrorists back in Gaza. To me, it seems like their very ends are also morally cloudy. So I'd love to know from you, I'd love to know your thoughts on what you think about this. To me, it just seems like there's moral ambiguity where there really shouldn't be. And I feel that we're talking too much about, peace. Peace has been achieved when this is nothing more and nothing less than a ceasefire, and more conflict is inevitable, unless you deal with fundamentally the Palestinian issue. And if you don't understand the root of the Palestinian issue, then you need to watch the trailer for one of our new documentaries. And if you want to watch it, you can click on the link in the video description, because this is important. This is the documentary about the invention of the Palestinians, how a nation was created to destroy another. The Palestinians. We have been told they are an ancient people fighting for their homeland which has been stolen from them. This narrative has fueled decades of conflict, painting Israel as an occupier of stolen land. But what if this identity is not of an ancient nation, but a modern, cynical invention? A political construct designed not to build a state, but to dismantle the Jewish one. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the truth behind the creation of the Palestinian identity, how it was forged in the fires of pan-Arabism, absent in historical records until strategically rebranded in the 1960s by leaders like Egyptian-born Yasser Arafat to rally global opposition against Israel. We'll trace its roots from the Ottoman era, where Palestine was a region without a distinct people, through the pre-1948 years of Arab rejectionism, before focusing on the pivotal shift of the 1960s, when Arafat declared we should now be known as Palestinians, inventing symbols like the flag to mask genocidal aims. This wasn't about self-determination, it was about exploiting refugees, suppressing true aspirations under Arab rule, and perpetuating a war to destroy Israel. Join us as we debunk the myths of an ancient Palestinian nation, expose the strategic manipulation, and reveal how this construct has hindered peace while fueling hate. Fair but firm, this is the story of an identity weaponized, not for building a future, but for erasing one. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.